All right. Good afternoon and welcome to another Learn webinar, virtual Learn webinar here on Zoom. I know that's a word that people don't like to hear much these days, but we're still finding ways to keep you engaged, informed, and educated through this virtual platform. My name is David Walton. I am the Event and Programs Manager for the Tompkins Chamber of Commerce. And today we are very fortunate to have with us members from the Alcohol and Drug Council and Challenge and OAR as we kind of talk about the OJT grant and recovery, or being a recovery friendly employer through our Learn series. I want to first and foremost thank our series sponsor, Tompkins Trust Company. Without their support, we wouldn't be able to bring you these informative sessions during the pandemic and as we continue to advance and prosper out of the pandemic. So just want to say thank you again to Tompkins Trust Company. We've got a really great panel lined up for you today. We will have time to introduce every single person who makes up this panel and makes up this committee. We don't have necessarily everyone because I feel that when we have our meetings, there sometimes are like 10 of us when we come together, 10 or 12 of us sometimes when we come together. So this is a small contingency, but we're small but mighty. And we are here to answer any questions that people may have and kind of talk about the really what I think is really wonderful work that we're doing here in Tompkins County for our community. So if you have any questions at any point for our attendees that are joining us today, feel free to put them in the chat. I will be moderating the discussion today, and I will pull any of those questions to the panel to be answered. And we'll also have time for a little Q&A at the end to address any additional questions that may come up once we hear from our panelists today. So without further ado, I'd like to turn things over to Stacy. She's going to get us started with a presentation, and then we'll hop directly into our panel.
Great. Thank you, David, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting us today. I agree. This is a really exciting program that we're working on, and we have some great partners with some great services. So I'm excited that folks are here to hear about what we're doing. Before we get to that, I'm going to share my screen here and do a brief presentation on recovery in the workplace. Everybody can see that, yes? Okay, perfect. So we're going to dive right in if I can get this to advance. What is going on here? I don't know what's happening. There we go. Okay, you all can see that, right? And you've all disappeared from my screen, so can someone actually say out loud that you can?
Yes, yeah, you're
okay,
good to
thank
go.
You. Okay, thanks.
This is like a new feature that Zoom has added that they thought would make life easier for presenters, so you're not distracted by everyone else.
Oh, okay. So that's,
but don't worry about it. You're good.
All right. So just a quick crash course in a little bit about addiction, tolerance, dependence, and addiction. And I think this will help a bit with understanding folks who are suffering from addiction. Tolerance, folks know this, right? The need for more of the substance to feel the same effect. So somebody who has a higher tolerance is going to be, typically be drinking, we'll say using substances at a higher level, but also maybe functioning a little better. So folks who have a higher tolerance will be behaving in ways that don't match the amount of substances they're using. So that is a physical, we'll say symptom of addiction, but it's not the only symptom of addiction. You can, if you're taking prescription medication, you build up a tolerance to that medication, even if you're taking it the way you're supposed to. Interestingly enough, tolerance can also is usually what leads to withdrawal symptoms, right? So if somebody's dependent on the substance, they stop taking it, then you're going to see that those physical withdrawal symptoms. Here's the dependence piece too, right? Also not necessarily a symptom of addiction. Your body will become dependent on whatever substance you're using. And this is where the withdrawal comes in also. Addiction in general is a set of symptoms, typically causing compulsive drug seeking and use despite harmful consequences. There's a whole list in the DSM that says these are what it takes to get this diagnosis of a substance use disorder. But basically, it's using despite negative consequences and the inability to stop using. that's the addiction. So if we think about diabetes, high blood pressure, same idea, right? There's a set of symptoms that goes along with each of those diagnoses, and that's what we see with addiction. You also see actual changes in the brain of an addict, of someone who's addicted, where that piece of drug use that starts off voluntary becomes something that they can't control, and that's that I can't stop, I need help piece. So that's just quick about the disease itself. Let's talk about recovery. Recovery is not just not using. That is a part of it, but it's a process of change. According to NIDA, National Institute on Drug Abuse, it's a process of change through which people improve their health and live self-directed lives and strive to reach their full potential. It is a way of living. It's a set of behaviors. It's a set of beliefs that allows somebody to embrace a life of recovery. A lot of folks need help to do this, which is why Alcohol and Drug Council, CARS, REACH, right? All the agencies in town help folks get to their definition of recovery. Where we want someone to be a productive member of society. We want them to be living their lives, paying bills, getting a job, having family, all that stuff, right? With everybody deserves. We want them to have that, and that's this idea of recovery. So for some people, if you notice in this definition, for some people that means abstinence, complete non-use of substances. For other people, not necessarily, right? They may be, maybe we have somebody who's using a maintenance drug like Suboxone to stay off of heroin. Maybe somebody's still taking a prescription drug for a mental illness, right? So recovery is not necessarily abstinence, and it's also not just not using. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? Like it's a fuller piece than just the not using piece. But there is some control of their use, and for some people that is abstinence. For some people, they know I cannot use substances, it takes me to a bad place. So let's talk about recovery and unemployment. Staying occupied and avoiding idle time is an important aspect of maintaining recovery. Folks who are in the throes of their addiction are often, that's what they're spending all of their time on. They're spending all of their time using, recovering, obtaining their substance. So when they choose to begin the path of recovery, they have a lot of empty time. And we know that empty time is a trigger for relapse, right? So what we also know is folks in recovery face a much higher unemployment rate than other folks. So when we're talking about, I know a lot of people, a lot of folks are, especially employers, are looking at justice, equity, diversity initiatives. Hiring this group of people, this group of people is traditionally one of the tougher groups to employ. So if you are giving these folks a chance, you're addressing that aspect. We know that I would be remiss if I didn't mention, we know that some employers hold misconceptions or have had negative past experiences with folks who have been using, worrying what impact that will have on their business. But what we want to emphasize is that the strengths and experiences our folks have used to obtain recovery are some of the qualities you want in a good employee, right? The tenacity, strength, the follow through, all of those things, all those skills that they used to get them to recovery are really good skills in an employee, in a person, right? So we're hoping that if you are an employer who has had a negative experience, that you would open your mind and give us sort of another chance to make our case. And when we can talk about this grant does have resources to address a potential negative situation. So what are the benefits of hiring someone in recovery? You can read these. If you're hiring someone, you're providing, you as an employer are providing the employee with a sense of purpose. We've talked about this with our group. It's really important to folks in recovery, folks who've struggled with addiction, to sort of get a new identity, right? The new identity of an employee, of a college student, of somebody, of a certified, somebody who's, you know, obtaining a certification. That new identity is a key part in preventing relapse as well. You're giving them a chance for healthy socialization, we know that isolation, and we won't mention COVID, but we know that isolation is not a good thing for folks in recovery. So if you're giving them a way to interact with other folks in a healthy environment, that can only be good for them. Like we said, confidence, loyalty, and dedication. Our folks want to work. They want a chance, and you're giving them that ability and that confidence, and like I said, that new identity. Daily responsibilities, I mentioned before, right? That a lot of our folks, they have spent a lot of time using substances. When this open day sits in front of them, it can be tricky. So if you're giving them something to do, if we're giving folks ways to fill that space, again, it's a good thing, preventing relapse. And increased work ethic. I wrote ethnic. That's terrible. Darn it. I meant to say increased work ethic. So again, you know, building that part of this new identity. I am now a worker. I'm an employee, and I'm going to work hard and you know, to earn that, to have that fixed. I'm really embarrassed about that typo. Okay, now for employers, what will you gain? Get dedicated, loyal, motivated worker. If you're giving our folks a chance and you get a good worker, that person is going to really, they're going to work hard for you. They're going to talk about you. They're really going to be a good worker, you know, assuming things are going well, right? Increased applicant pool. I know we are not the only agency. Lisa, you and I know are working on other employer aspects with other partners in the community. We are having a very tough time filling positions in this community and everywhere. So if this is a way to get an increased applicant pool if you're opening your doors to folks in recovery. Education for other employees. This is interesting too, right? So if you have somebody who has struggled but has made their way to where they are, if you have other employees that could potentially be struggling and you may not know it, there's your person. You've got somebody to say, you know, let's help you. There's somebody here that can help you. Just seeing someone go through that process is often education for other employees. And that other one, we're lending to that destigmatization of addiction. If you're giving folks a chance, if they can see other people working through it and succeeding, what better example of showing how recovery is? All right, let me keep moving on here. Oh, go back. Okay. I do also want to mention for the employers on the call, there are actual monetary rewards for hiring somebody in recovery. We know that liability is a concern for employers, that if you're hiring somebody and you are putting yourself at a bit of risk. There is a federal program through the Department of Labor that is designed to reduce employer liability. I put the website here. I'll try to, if I can, maybe get them out to you somehow. But that's the website to find more about that. And there's also a tax credit program that also will, if you're an eligible employer, you can apply to receive tax credits per eligible employee. So there are actual money reasons for giving folks in recovery a chance. So just wanted to make sure you knew that. This is the references that I used for the presentation, and we did say questions or comments. If somebody has something they want to know right now, we can answer it. Otherwise, we can wait till the end. But I'm also going to stop sharing. All right. So do we want, David, you want me to start in on the
part? So kind of the way this works is now that we've kind of given an overview and an introduction to the program itself, I think it would be great to kind of introduce the faces and the people that make it happen and that have been doing the work, believe it or not, for the past year behind the scenes to get us to this point. So Stacey, I'll let you kick us off.
Yep, I probably also should have introduced myself before the presentation, but I will do that now. So my name is Stacey Cangelosi. I'm the Education and Prevention Director at Alcohol and Drug Council. We are the ones who received the grant and are working with the other partners to work to make sure the work of the grant gets done. We also serve as the recovery support piece. So if you have an employee that has maybe gotten an OJT grant or is struggling with their use, maybe you have concerns, but you're not sure what to do, we're the agency that you would call, right? So we could help you walk through all those pieces. We offer our outpatient services to your employees. So we could do evaluations, individual therapy, group. We're hoping to be hiring peers. We're in the process of hiring peer support recovery specialists, I should say that, which are folks that can go out and actually meet with. So if you have an employee, sorry, these terms mixed up. If you have an employee that you think that is struggling, there's a peer that can be sort of dispatched to do whatever is needed. But if you don't know how to talk to a client, if you're concerned about safety, whatever it is, we are the agency that you would call, and we'll figure out a way to get you whatever is needed. So we're the recovery support piece in this.
Awesome. Thank you, Stacey. I'm gonna go left on our Brady Bunch or Hollywood Squares boxes, and I'm gonna throw it to Mr. Mike Foster.
Hey guys, Mike Foster. I work for Challenge. Challenge is really well known for supporting people that have developmental disabilities, because that's what Challenge started with in the 1960s. But we work with anybody who's experiencing any kind of barrier to employment to help them obtain and maintain employment. And that can be related to developmental disabilities, mental health issues. It can be someone who was incarcerated and has a gap in their work history. It can be a stay-at-home mom who has a gap in their work history. It can be someone who just can't get an interview for whatever reason because it's just hard to get an interview. And of course, that involves working with people in recovery as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. And how long have you been with Challenge, Mike?
I've been with Challenge twice, so altogether 8 years.
Great. And Stacey, how long have you been with Alcohol and Drug Council? You're muted.
Yeah, a little embarrassing. But I've been with the ADC for 20 years.
That's awesome. All right. Next, yeah, I appreciate the claps for that. That's a huge milestone. There's nothing embarrassing about that at all. Next up, I'm gonna throw it up. We have a tag team here, and Miss Haley Romero and Mr. Ricardo Escobedo. I'll let you guys flip a coin to see who's going to intro themselves first and talk about the work that you guys do at OAR. Love it, Haley.
I'll go. Hi, my name is Haley. I've been working for OAR for maybe 7 months now, I think. I'm their housing coordinator and parolee caseworker, but I also help with employment, communicating with employers and whatnot. But OAR works with people that have been, incarcerated or ever in court involved, and we provide a number of different services to basically help people who are, struggling or need help with different things who are being released, or maybe just need help kind of getting ID, like various different things that we do here in OAR.
Great. And I feel that, Haley, you and I got to know each other like the first week you started working at OAR. Is that right? So it's been great to see. I will say a testament to Haley and her commitment to this job. Like in that first week, I know you dove in like feet first and you hit the ground running, and you've been working kind of nonstop this entire time. So a huge shout out to you for that.
Thank you.
And next, Ricardo Escobedo.
Hey guys, I'm Ricardo Escobedo. I'm the client service assistant here at OAR, and I'm also a CIU student. I was actually a part of CIU before I was employed at OAR. But I work more in the front, more with like the minimal services, so we can like anyone coming in and out of court or out of prison. Typically, you know, when they get out, they have a bus pass, $50, not really much to their name. So, you know, whenever the services that we provide here typically help, maybe helping them with an employment, or maybe something as simple as getting their birth certificate or social security cards. And sometimes people don't really know how to navigate the systems, or know eligibility requirements for things such as Section 8 or healthcare or SNAP benefits, or anything regarding social services in Tompkins County. So we're kind of like the third man, or the middleman between the services that people need and what we can give. You know? So that's it. That's mostly what I do up here. But I do want to say that where CIU, College Initiative Upstate, is seeking to recruit more students for their college prep class. So if you guys know anyone who's looking to continue their education, maybe they started college and then didn't think it was for them, or dropped out, you know, and now would be a good time to connect with CIU to get that ball going.
That's awesome. Thank you for all your service and your work, Ricardo. This is our first time getting an opportunity to meet face to face, but your name has come up so many times in my dealings with the people at OAR. I'm sure that this will be no surprise to you, but that entire team loves you over there, and they've all had nothing but glowing things to say about you. So it's great to get a chance to meet you face to face.
Likewise.
So for me, for those of you who don't know me, my name is David Walton. I do work for the chamber. Most of us here have crossed paths in one way or another through the events and programs that we do for the chamber. But another part of my job here is that I'm also the OJT, or on the job training coordinator. And the chamber's leg of this organization and of this partnership is that once an employer identifies an employee who may be, well, actually, let me give you a little history. The OJT program at the chamber is not new. Originally, when we used to host the OJT program, we were working with people that were recently incarcerated that were re-entering the workforce. And we had done that work for a number of years and had built some really good relationships here in the community as a result of that program. Last year or 2 years ago now, with the funding for the program shifting and the focus of the program shifting to individuals in recovery, the chamber was really excited to be on board with that shift. And the individual who used to do this work prior for recently incarcerated citizens was no longer here at the chamber. So Jennifer asked me if I would be interested to do it. And I was like, yeah, it sounds like a really good program that would benefit the community. And then we started doing all the work with Stacy and all the different partners and laying the foundation. I will be very honest and transparent. Doing the foundational work sometimes can be really hard because it's very meticulous. It is a ton of attention to detail and reading documents to make sure that we are adhering to all of the guidelines set in place by the federal government. So that part of the process was hard. We have meetings bi-weekly, and we come together as a team. Everybody has a ton of really great ideas and insights and skills that they bring to the table. But the reality is that for many of us, this is not our only job that we do within our organization. This is an extension of the work that we do through our organizations. So it did take us, I would say, and would you agree with this, Stacey? It took us like maybe a good 6 or 7 months kind of just to get our infrastructure in place and to get the ball rolling for us to even be in a position to start to accept applications from different employers.
Yep. Yeah. And this is a learning grant. This is a pilot grant. So there's another round of people applying for this grant after us. So what anything we're doing, we're all learning. We're all learning together. So, and that has been a really enjoyable part of the grant too, is not only working with the partners, but working with the employees and the employers too.
Yeah, so that is very true. And to just learn so much more about this grant, and we do things where we reach out to other organizations across the country that have also been doing this work prior to us and receive their insight and kind of their perspectives as well, so that we felt enabled and like we were able to succeed with this program. And so again, back to now the Chamber's leg and what we do. When an employer identifies an employee that may be in recovery or dealing with some addiction now, they can contact us and say, hey, we just hired a new employee. We really want to support David through his journey. And we have funding available after an organization or an employer would fill out an application first to express their interest. I would review said application and make sure that they met the requirements to put an employee through the program. And then they would fill out their contract with the chamber stating that they will complete the 6 to 8 weeks that it takes to train their employee. And then we are able to supply them with $2,000 of grant money that covers, I would say, a little over 50% of the training for their employees. And I'll just kind of throw this out there and we'll talk about challenges and successes that we faced. But just one of the challenges that we faced early on with our program was people needing to make that shift. I guess there's a twofold challenge, and everybody on the panel will be able to understand this. The first was making that shift to longstanding relationships that we had with employers, that we were shifting from incarcerated employees or people that had recently been incarcerated to now people that were in recovery. And then the second thing that's directly connected to that of a challenge is, how do you identify someone who's in recovery? As an employer, a lot of people felt, and rightfully so, it's hard for an employee to come forward and share that they may be in recovery because A, it's not required to get a job or to be employed that I divulge that information to my employer. And B, the stigma that's associated with, here I am coming in to apply for a job at your organization, and I'm expected, or you're telling me that there's funding that can support my training, but in order to receive it, I have to divulge to you that I'm in recovery. And that fear of, now, will I even get this job if you know that information? So part of what we're hoping to do with sessions like this is not only inform and let people know about the OJT program, and but more importantly, how to be a recovery-friendly employer and what that means, and breaking those stigmas and helping the community while also helping your business, while also supporting this program so that we can help others. So it's all interconnected. And again, we're all excited to be here with you, and we're happy to inform and educate. And, so with that, I'm going to kind of shift the focus a little bit and throw it back to the panel. One of the questions, and maybe we can take a little deeper dive here with that transition into why these services are helpful to not only our clients, but also to our employers, and things for employers to think about when they're working with their clients, when it comes to like someone sharing that information with you that they may be in recovery, like kind of like what are next steps, or even how to maybe possibly engage in some of those conversations at the hiring process.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and start. I think one of the in doing this work, we have partners throughout the state, and one of our partners out in a different county has a good group of recovery-friendly employers. And what I hear from the employers is it's not so much that they're asking are you in recovery, but they're asking, what are you struggling with? What can I help you with? Right. And that may come out. It may be, look, I can't get to work because, or I need to leave work maybe every other day because I'm going to an AA meeting, or I'm going to meet with my therapist or my treatment provider. So I need some extra time for that. Maybe maybe you start seeing some warning signs. Maybe somebody's not showing up on a Friday, or they're leaving on a Friday, coming in late on Mondays. You suspect, they might be acting different, right? It's not, we're not expecting folks to march in there and say, I think you're using. It's, I've noticed this, what can I help you with? What are you struggling with? And I think the importance of, like I said, this group is historically hard to employ, but there's so much good stuff. There's so much value that they can bring to a workplace, and so much value they bring as an employee. For those of us who work with people in recovery, those folks are just doing such a great job, and often, if they want, often can take on that role of helping someone else who's struggling. It's so great to have that viewpoint in your agency represented. And just in general, even if you have folks who are not in recovery, just the fact that they know that you're supporting that will change the way they sort of look at you as an employer, right? And not just recovery, but recovery from mental illness, trauma, all of this stuff that often goes together. Recognizing the strength in that work and those folks is gonna sort of give you a good feeling, but it's also really great for our folks to have that, to take that power back, I guess, right? To turn something that was bad into something that was good, and to keep going on through that journey. And for some of our folks, getting a job or going back to school was the shift they needed to maintain that recovery and the work that they've done. It's you can't underestimate the emotional power that an employer can give to an employee. Did I answer all that? I think I had trouble remembering what the question was, but I think I answered it.
You nailed it. You hit all the points. Did anyone else want to speak to that, about things for employers to think about when working with their clients? Haley?
I would love to. From my perspective, coming from someone who is in recovery, I've been sober for 13 years. I've been the manager who has to hire people. I've spent several years doing that. And the idea, and just in the work I do now with this program, when I talk to employers about this program, a lot of what I hear is, well, I've had bad experiences with people in recovery, so I'm not really looking to go down that road again. It's a risk. That's kind of ridiculous, because when you hire somebody, you are always taking a risk. There's people who interview wonderfully and are the worst employees you've ever had. There are people that you're like, I think this person's probably going to crash and burn pretty quick, but I have to get a warm body in here. And they wind up getting promotions for years and years and being the manager of the company. Hiring, period, is always a risk. Being in recovery does not increase that risk. It can be a little bit bigger of a flame when someone crashes and burns that's in recovery, just because of the issues that they experience. But I would say the risk itself is absolutely no different. There is a branding and design agency, very successful one in Los Angeles, called Creative Matters. And they have recruited 90% of their workforce specifically from recovery treatment centers, because what they have found is people that are engaged in recovery display more creativity and they're more motivated to stay employed. And I would say, from my experience in recovery, when your life has been not only unmanageable, but unbearable for a very long time, and that life becomes something different that you actually enjoy, you are highly motivated to keep that joy coming and not go back to what life was. So I don't know, maybe some of that's opinion just from my experiences, but that's what I would say is beneficial to employers: the creativity, the desire to stay employed, and that it's not a higher risk than hiring anybody else.
Okay, Mike, I love the way you worded that. And it actually transitions us really well into the follow-up question that's kind of in the same vein, but also just being very timely for what it is that we all are experiencing right now. Given COVID-19's global impact on our economy and the struggles that businesses have had locating employees or even getting employees to come back to work, how can putting a bigger shift or a bigger emphasis on becoming a recovery friendly employer be an opportunity for businesses to overcome that challenge?
Yeah,
And
I'm happy to jump in first with that.
yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Obviously it expands an applicant pool. Stacy had talked about those during the presentation. So, and there is an awful lot of people in recovery who are the essential workers keeping everything going during all the lockdowns. And a lot of them are now looking to move into something where I think I really could be paid what I'm worth and what I can give. So these are people that have not had gaps in their employments, that worked through the entirety of the lockdown and are now looking to be able to give something more to another employer. That attitude of giving to an employer versus taking from an employer. And again, that doesn't speak for everybody in recovery. Are you going to encounter selfish people? Sure, people are people. But part of recovery involves giving. I mean, the 12th step of the 12-step program is helping others. So someone that's engaged in recovery is going to have a focus on giving. So what they bring to the employer is more of, I want to give to this community, not I want to take from this. I just want to line my wallet more. I just here looking out for me and getting my own. We have systems in place. The Western labor system in general is largely just a reflection of JP Morgan's industrial consolidation, which was nothing more than elevating profit as of higher value than people. We use terms like human resources. People are not resources, man. People are people. And a recovery mindset is very aware of seeing people as people. And I think that lifts the entire community up together. And maybe that's rambling a little bit. I'm sorry. I hope that provides some kind of answer.
No, I liked it a lot. I think that spoke to it very beautifully. Anyone else? Haley, Ricardo, do one of you guys have a viewpoint on that? How during this time of people struggling to get people to come back to work, how this would be a great opportunity to shift to recovery-friendly employers?
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, anyone being a recovery friendly employer, it's still, it sounds new age. I do understand people, they get a job because they want to get paid. They want a check, they want to pay for, pay bills, pay rent, whatever. But I think when it comes to people in recovery, they're while they're in recovery, they're looking more than just a check. Mike mentioned giving, so I feel like there's much more heart in the work that people do who are in recovery. So I'm surprised why there's not, why everybody isn't a recovery friendly employer. But I just think it adds a little bit more value to more value to the employer and more value to the employee. It just seems like a win-win situation there.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And Ricardo, you actually set me up perfectly, because a question that came through in private chat was that I had mentioned that this is an on-the-job training grant. And someone asked, well, David, what exactly is the training that takes place? Like, I don't understand exactly what the grant does. And so the reality is that we recognize that as a society, we aren't 100% there yet, where people are just doing this altruistically,
Mm-hmm.
where they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart, where they're like, you know what, everybody deserves a chance. Like Mike said, anyone I hire, that's a risk. There is still that stigma that's there, that if I hire somebody in recovery, I could do this at a loss to myself. Mm-hmm. And I could be wasting my time paying this employee who may not stick around. So that's kind of the purpose of the OJT grant. It allows you to kind of have a buffer in where it's an extra incentive for you as an employer to receive partial funding for the funds that will be then turned around and paid to that employee. Mm-hmm. We kind of help not soften the blow, because I don't want to put it in a negative connotation, but we provide a resource for you to say, hey, do something that maybe you normally wouldn't do. give someone a chance who maybe you normally wouldn't give a chance until you fully become someone who believes in this mantra of being a recovery friendly employer. But until we get you there, we'll give you $2,000 to give David a chance and put David through the training that you would normally have to. There's going to be a risk there anyway. Like Mike said, we'll cover half of the cost of what you would have normally paid his salary to train him for 6 to 8 weeks. We'll give you $2,000. If David makes it through all 6 to 8 weeks of your training and he ends up being a model employee, we covered half of the cost that it took you to train David to do his job. And how great is that? And so that's kind of the purpose or the intentionality behind the grant. And the reality is that you can be an employer that's hiring for multiple positions and you're working with different organizations like L.E.A.R.N at CARS, and you have 4 applicants that are all in recovery. You can apply for 4 different grants for those 4 different positions through the chamber and help offset half the cost of all those employees training that they have for the next 6 to 8 weeks. So it is kind of like a win-win in a world where we don't have many win-win situations. It helps lessen some of that risk.
If I could add into that, David, with on-site support. So with this program, that would come down to what I do with Challenge. So what that would look like if someone starts working at an employer, or an employer calls me and says that, you know, this person has disclosed they're in recovery, their performance is really bad, I'm looking to avoid turnover costs. Is there anything that you could help with? What I would do is I can either come to the job site and work with an individual or meet them off the job site, whatever the individual and the employer think would be best. And specifically with this program, we would handle, it's usually soft skill issues. So, you know, things we would handle with soft skills are things like language register. You know, when you spent 20 years living on the streets, your language register is not the language register that's expected when you walk into a professional office environment. It may be something as simple as coaching and supporting someone on having a conversation with their supervisor of, I'm sorry, I've been losing my temper because I'm used to going to my home group meeting at 3:30 every day, but I've got to work until 4. So I'm missing it. I really need that in my life. Could we talk about a way I could maybe flex my schedule a half hour so I could make my meeting? So very much handling soft skills. We can absolutely do handle hard skill issues too. Things like ways people can work more efficient at a job they're doing. You know, really simple things could be, a few weeks ago, I was working with a guy that was washing dishes. And when he unloaded the dish machine, he was just using one hand, one dish at a time. The employer was like, this guy's too slow. So it was, dude, let's just work on using both hands so you can work twice as fast. And it went great and the employer is happy with them. So with this program, there are supports that can be offered to individuals who are employed on site or off site.
That's dope. And I think that's also a really good segue for us to throw it back. And I know that Ricardo wanted to share a little bit of his story. I'm not going to put Ricardo on the spot or anything. But Ricardo, I'm just going to throw it over to Ricardo because he wanted to share a little insight with everyone here that's on the panel and our attendees today as well.
Insight on my experience through?
Yeah, on your experience, because without everyone who may not know this, Ricardo, you not only work for OAR, but you are a participant in the OJT program as well.
Yes. So I was introduced to this program through CIU, actually. And let's see, it's been about 4 years in recovery. So I think it was Suzanne actually gave me this opportunity. They looked at this grant. I know you're trying to continue your education. You just got done with your associates. You don't really have a job right now because I'm doing intern work for OAR. So with that grant, it helped me. I was able to focus more on my work and more focus on my schoolwork and really just keep myself busy by assuring that like my vehicle was past inspection, that my vehicle was safe to drive. My vehicle it was like the winter. my vehicle had snow tires on it. So like getting to and from work, I don't know if everyone here has applied for a job before, but typically a vehicle is one of the first things they require, which is, it is what it is. But through this Healthy Workforce grant and this the on-the-job training grant, it really made it possible for me to get from Ithaca to Cortland, and then it gave me I was more confident about job seeking, and then what my internship blossomed into, a newfound job here at OAR. I mean, if it wasn't for the help, I don't think I wouldn't have decided to continue my education at SUNY Cortland. So I'm going for my BA, and I wouldn't have been here on this panel, and I wouldn't have been working for OAR. So I'm really happy I can work with people that I find similarities with, and that's that.
That's awesome, Ricardo. And again, I do want to say this, just put this disclaimer out there. Even though my handoff was clumsy, Ricardo did know that we were going to highlight him today. I didn't put him on the spot. Him sharing was planned, even though my handoff to him was not one of my best handoffs that I've ever done in this virtual space. But with that said, I do want to say, one, thank you for sharing. And two, I would love for you to be able to share your story on an even bigger platform for more employers to hear about your experience, how not only did you benefit from the OJT and Healthy Workforce program, but you're also now kind of like in the trenches doing the work yourself and giving back. And I know that probably motivates you every day to try to help and be a resource to as many people as possible. And I think that kind of like is a testament to what this whole program is about.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, some of our life, as crazy as it sounds to say, some of our life choices don't define us as who we are as individuals. And it shouldn't hang over our heads for the rest of our professional lives and prevent us from being out and being great model employees, and also being able to open doors and be an inspiration to others that they can do it too. So thank you again for sharing, Ricardo.
David, I wanted,
yeah, go ahead,
yeah,
Stacey.
I want to jump in too. And I know there's a question in the chat too. I think, Mike, you said it, and Ricardo, like, I agree. Why I think there are more recovery friendly workplaces. You just might not know it. The reality is, as an employer, you have people who are working for you who are A, in recovery, or B, struggling with something, with substances or mental health. You just don't know it. So by saying and embracing this idea of recovery friendly employer, you're putting it out in the open, which allows for, like what Ricardo was saying, if he didn't have the ability to get his car fixed, just that one thing could derail plans for somebody who's trying really hard, right? And I hope I'm not speaking for you, Ricardo, but that's what this grant does, right? We give those folks a chance for that one thing that might derail the whole plan. We've got your back, we can help, or the employer can help. Like, so as fostering this environment of recovery friendly lets that stuff come to light so that you can fix that and potentially get a much bigger reward in return from an employee that just had, a couple things that go wrong, and then you would get them back, get on the right track. So I think by formally declaring that recovery friendly workplace, it allows for those conversations to happen and for the person to not be scared to say, yeah, I'm leaving early because I have to get to an AA meeting, right? Or I'm struggling because, whatever is happening, I'm struggling and I need help. So I do. And David, I'm not sure if I'm jumping in here, but I see there's a question about working at a hotel with alcohol. Is this too difficult for most people in recovery? I think it depends on the person who's in recovery as to what they can, because for some people, it's not alcohol. Alcohol is not their issue. So they're fine being around alcohol. But for some, that may be it. The other piece, again, when we're talking about you're already dealing with folks in recovery, the restaurant business, it has somewhat higher rate of substance use because just of that, the way that work is. So I would, if you're opening up and saying, look, we're recovery friendly here, this is what you would be doing. If this is a problem for you, let us know. We can help you. We have supports in the community. There's other people that other resources we can offer to you if this is something that's too difficult for you. And maybe there's another place for them to be. Maybe they do something else. I'm not sure. But as the Healthy Workforce Network, we are a resource to help you figure that out with your employer, with your employee. Right? You can have these conversations with them, and even just asking this question of somebody, if you know they're in recovery, ask them. They'll tell you. And the fact that you're asking, hopefully that opens up this environment of safety and curiosity that will allow them to confide in you more. So I hope that helps. I don't know if any of the other partners want to address that question.
I like what Mike said earlier about people aren't resources, like human resources, they're people. So ask, like, don't assume because I've shared I'm in recovery that alcohol is my area that I struggle with. Just ask me. Like, I think that we've gotten to a place where we're scared to have like human like interactions with our employees and our employers. And I think that this kind of is another level and a layer to peel back in making those connections to be able to support people. And I think that that's another thing that this program is all about, supporting people, seeing them as more as just a cog in the wheel of this capitalist society. Like, we want to help you. We want you to be your best self while you're here at this job. And so I think it's a great question. No, go ahead.
I just want to real quick. I know I feel like I'm hogging this, but one of our partners who in the other county who does recovery friendly workplace stuff, there is a recovery friendly employer there who was a pizza place. She owned a pizza place, and she had folks that were in recovery that were working for her. There was an employee she had that just for whatever reason was not doing well there, was not doing well at the pizza place for numerous reasons. Ended up, someone else she knew needed a caregiver for an aging parent, and she thought this person would be perfect for that position. Ended up turning it into, so now she's a caregiver for another person. So it's not just, things may not go perfect, they may not work out, but again, having that opportunity, having that open conversation allowed for this person to get another opportunity because she was a recovery friendly employer. So I think it will have impacts more than we can even see or know.
Before I get to your question, Carly, I have another question in the chat, and I'm gonna throw it out to Mike and to Stacy. Can OJT grant funds be used to support challenge contracted individuals? Can OJT funds be used to support challenge contracted individuals?
Assuming that question is talking about people who are working through Challenge's contract staffing department. Mm-hmm. The only difficulty with the OJT grant is most Challenge contract staffing positions pay $12.50 an hour, and there has to be at least $13 an hour, I believe it is, paid for the OJT grant to qualify.
That is correct.
So other than the rate of pay, yes, absolutely, someone in Challenge contract staffing could receive these services. And it's also not beyond the realm of possibility for me to offer supportive services just kind of on the down low.
And tied to that, if anyone here that's here on this panel as an attendee now, or someone that watches this later, you can email me at dwialton@tompkinschamber.org, and I can get you the guidelines for the grant for you to be able to take a look at them if you're interested in applying. That can be step one. There's also a survey on the Chamber's website where you can do an inquiry about wanting to participate in the OJT program, and then I can reach out to you that way as well. Carly, you had a question. Carly Hansen from the Chamber.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carly Hansen. I'm the Director of HR and Operations at the Chamber. And I just wanted to real quick bring an HR perspective to the conversation. I can't speak for the entirety of my profession, of course. But to Mike, what you said a little bit earlier, I've always tried to take the approach in my career and my work personally that there is a big difference between human capital, which is something that we learn about in organization development. And I think that maybe helps describe what you were speaking about before. So there's a big difference between human capital and human resources, right? So I've always looked at my job about supporting humans with resources internally. And that's really made, I think, a big difference in the organizations I've worked for. And specifically in the context of hiring and onboarding and continuous growth for people, I really try to take the position, I've heard so many times my career owners and managers and such telling me, well, I don't know, that was a bad hire. And I was like, I really feel like every situation that maybe doesn't work out gives us an opportunity to look inward and say, what resources didn't we provide that person to be successful in our work? And it can come from so many different places, right? It can come from onboarding. It can come from continuous training and giving people the technology they need in so many different ways. But I really have seen it demonstrated that if you think about providing people with different types of resources to be successful, that it enriches your organization as a whole, right? Because you start to look at other employment relationships and other employees and think about how you can incorporate and heighten resources for them. Because like you said, Stacy, there are people in recovery that you have on your staff right now and you just don't know it. And there are people struggling with other types of problems and with feeling just like that they're not good enough in their work for whatever reason, right? So taking that kind of standpoint is providing these types of resources can spark some real organizational enrichment. And I just wanted to share that means different things and can show up in a lot of different ways, big and small. One thing we've been doing at the Chamber with the help of David and the rest of our team is putting more focus in our event planning and our event structure. And, for internal and external events, saying, okay, we're going to make sure we're very intentionally providing really cool options for non-alcoholic drinks, right, on our menu, and supporting organizations that are intentional about providing mocktails on their menu and things of that nature. So there are a lot of different dimensions, I think, that we can do as HR people and as managers and as owners to show up in different ways that might give people confidence to move forward in their career, whether they're in a recovery situation or when they're whatever sort of barriers they feel like they might be encountering to be successful in the organization. So.
David, I do want to jump in too. I feel like we did, and Carly, your wording made me think this. Ricardo mentioned the CIU services. So this is not just this isn't just new people coming in. If you have an employee that could really benefit from the next level certification, could maybe benefit from some training, CIU has the resources available to help that too. So if you're seeing an employee that maybe needs extra motivation, or maybe is showing extra motivation, and you want to reward them somehow, what better way than to say, hey, there's an opportunity to up your certification or to obtain a certification that would then make them a better employee moving forward, even if they left your, which we don't want them leaving your agency, but you're contributing to that idea that they're becoming a more rounded employee. So there's other services. It's not just new employees. It's not just recovery supports. It's also if you have an employee that's looking to get more education, more training, more certification, that's the CIU piece that we can hook you up with too.
Yeah, same thing for if you have an employee that's getting a promotion and shifting from one role to another, that they also would be applicable. That also would be applicable for the grant. I think I have one last question to ask our panel that ends us on a very high and positive note, but I did want to see if there are any other questions from our attendees today. If there are any additional questions or thoughts, any virtual high fives anybody wants to give? Here we go. Miss Mary Kay Marks.
Yeah, that's right. So I always have to give my 2 cents, but so I guess I'm somewhat naive to the term. I just assume, and maybe it's just because it's my my background, but I'm a recruiter. I work for Grammatech, which is a software development company that's been in Ithaca for over 30 years that thankfully through the chamber has been getting a little bit more recognition in the last few years. No one knew. Every time I went to a chamber event, they'd get, who's Grammatech? We have no idea who you are. But, you know, I know, I don't know firsthand, but I would imagine that there are people who are dealing with recovery in the company. But as a recruiter, I never hear anything from candidates about this subject. I mean, obviously, it's not something they disclose very easily. And so to be, and the term a recovery-friendly employer, I would imagine, you know, we're friendly about everything. We're looking for candidates with certain level skill, you know, it doesn't really, I mean, it never gets disclosed any issue. So I guess my question is one, is it, you know, sort of like a label that you put on your website? What's the first step, you know, to kind of become this, you know, certainly again, for us, I think the difficulty is, you know, the level of skill we're looking for, and whether, I mean, I would imagine you have some candidates, but that's my second question. But first, what do you do to become, you know, classified as a recovery-friendly company? Because we're friendly in all sorts of different capacities. And again, it all depends on, you get hired if you have the skill. So that's the tricky part.
Mary Kay, I think the first step that we're looking for is for somebody to say, yes, I would love to do that. I would love to partner with you. So then it would be working with me, with the partners to, I mean, what kind of policies, we were talking about this on your application. Is there a question where you're asking if someone has lived experience, right? David, if I think Reach someone does that, where you're asking, do you have lived experience?
Lived experience. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So are you creating an environment where somebody would feel like, you said, Mary Kay, that no one discloses it? That may be because they're reluctant to, but also maybe because they're too scared to, right? So how are you as an employer or recruiter creating an environment where it's okay for this person to tell you something? Like, if you're looking at a resume that has gaps in it, are you assuming, like, what is an employer thinking when they see that? Are they thinking, I don't want to interview this person? Or are they thinking maybe something's going on here and I'd like to find out more about what this person is struggling with, or whatever it is, right? So I think first thing is to say, yes, we want to be a part of this. And then we work slowly to weave in policies to change the sort of way that you may do business, to change what are the offerings, do other people at the company know like you have an option to lead. What's your health stuff? Like, what are the options that support recovery already in the agency? And is that known to people? And is it made sort of formal in the way that people can access those things? So the first thing we're looking for is somebody to say, we want to help, we want to do this, we want to work with you guys.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I don't think we have, I know we don't have that question on our resume or on our application. I mean, for us, we're hiring usually people with very, very solid computer science backgrounds. And again, everybody, I have, in my family history, in my life, I've dealt with a lot of successful people who have recovery issues. So I know it can hit at any place. Mike, I think that's, you know, the fact that you disclosed that you've been sober for so long is like, good for you. I have absolutely no problem talking about the subject, but again, I've been a recruiter for a long time, mainly in the computer science technical space. No one has ever disclosed in any of the interview process. I've had other things disclosed that I really was shocked to hear, but never has it been disclosed. And the gap is always, you know, if you have the skills, the gap doesn't ever matter, but the skills have to be there. And so that's you know, some managers may say, well, I see a gap, and they'll say, well, let's investigate what the gap is. Now, if it's multiple gaps, they might be a little bit more hesitant. But in most cases, especially in the tech market right now, and so on my plug on the opposite side there, I would say if there are individuals that you see who are coming out of, situations, the first thing I would say to them is, do you have any interest in programming? Do you have any coding background? Do you have any technical interest? Because those jobs are, each candidate that I talk to has 4 or maybe 5 different offers when I'm competing to hire them. So again, that from that point of view, that's what I would suggest is you can send them down the tech route if they have any experience. That would be.
Yeah, and that's CIU. That's what those services is for. They'll send you to college. You'll cover. So if it's just even like you said, if it's just an interest, we'll help you get there.
Well, I volunteer to talk to you more because,
Great.
if there's candidates that you have that fit our bill, I'd be interested in hearing about it.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. So I have one last question and it'll get us wrapped up. Everybody will get a chance to kind of go around and share this because I like to always end this on a positive note as we continue to build relationships and get the program out more to the community. Let's talk about what excites you or makes you the most optimistic about our program and where you hope for us to be in a year. I know this past year has been rough. We try not to talk about it as much as possible, but looking ahead, where would we like to see ourselves this time in 2022?
I'll start. I really, like Mike said, I'm going to steal your phrase again. I would love to see every employer be a recovery friendly employer. I also think, and like you all heard, I've been doing this work for a lot of years and it's still a very stigmatized topic, but employment is a way for all of us to rally and to come around. So attaching substance use to employment, I think, opens the door for more discussion on this topic. And more discussion on this topic can only do good things. It can only reduce more stigma, give more opportunities, give folks a chance. That's why we do what we do. We're giving you a chance. And they may not take it the first time and run with it, and may not take it the second time, but you're still giving them that opportunity to do it. And isn't that what we all want, right? This opportunity. So that's what I hope that this gives our folks: hope, opportunity, and success to lead a healthy life. And yes, in a year, I would like to see this kind of panel. We do it again, and everybody's on it. There's so many people, and everybody's rushing to become a recovery-friendly employer. That's what I would like to see.
Hello, I can speak too. I also agree with Stacy and Mike that I would love to see more recovery-friendly employers. Actually, a couple employers I've been able to connect with have admitted to me that they're in recovery, which was really cool and an awesome connection to build, which made me feel more hopeful about also sending people over there. So I hope that to build more connections like that and openness where they feel comfortable, again, getting people that we work with an opportunity to develop some skills in maybe a field that they haven't had any experience in before. And really for the people I work with, also help develop a purpose for themselves to also, better help their own recovery process and to feel like they are having purpose in their life and not just doing, some fast food job and just feeling kind of not so important, but actually finding a meaningful career that helps them feel like they have a purpose and really grow and prosper in life.
I would love to see, in 2022, talking about how there's more people who are engaged in the conversation of what a recovery-friendly employer is. Like what Mary Kay said, absolutely. Even the phrase recovery-friendly employer is just not something a lot of people have heard. Typically you go to a company's website, you're going to see on their website their mission, their vision, and their values. to see companies and their values saying we strive to be a recovery friendly employer, I honestly think would help them with their recruitment needs based from my life experience. And what excites me the most is the unexpected things happening outside this program, from this program. I had talked with hospice for months because they have serious recruitment needs with their home healthcare aides, and trying to work out a path through this program where people could get the home health aide certification free of charge. And nobody likes to give away money for free that much, really. So it was very complicated. But from that, hospice themselves was able to meet with their board, rearrange their budget, and they will now pay for somebody to get the home health aide certification, plus bring them in at a wage of $17.50 an hour instead of $14.50 an hour. So even outside of this program, there's changes happening in the community from this program that makes me crazy excited.
That's really great. Looks like someone stepped in with Ricardo. Are you ready? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Sorry, someone just came in.
Yeah, I can tell. It's okay. So for me to answer this question, it is kind of like in the same vein of what everyone else has said. I think I just would love to see more mindset shifts, for people to kind of do what Mike and Mary Kay said and just have that reality set in that I have probably been a recovery friendly employer all along. And it was just unbeknownst to me because nobody was sharing that information. Like, I've probably had people that I've recognized as being like employee of the month or employee of the week that I've highlighted and spotlighted, but didn't know what they were going through. And I've told other employees, I wish you were more like this person, ironically enough, right? So I think that it requires a lot of mindset shifts. It requires a lot of mindset shifts around what it means to be recovery friendly. It requires a lot of mindset shifts around what someone who's in recovery is going through and what they will be capable of as an employee. It requires mindset shifts around the type of jobs that people are in recovery can do. The fact that we have representation here from a tech company that's saying like, yeah, we're friendly for a lot of things. So why would we not be recovery friendly? Yeah, we are. And what can we do to let people know that? That's what it takes. And getting this information out to more people, that's what I'm the most optimistic about, to let organizations know we're not asking you to do anything differently than what you've been doing all along, unbeknownst to you. Just do it with purpose and intentionality, and to do it very openly and publicly and say, we support all of our employees. And because now we have shifted our mindset, we're partnering with more organizations to be able to provide additional support for our employees, for them to be the best people that they can be, so then they can come here and be the best employees that we want them to be. That's my biggest hope. That's what I'm most optimistic about. Just providing more education opportunities for people to learn more so they can do more and be better. All right. Was there anyone else who wanted to share anything? Any other thoughts? Any other questions? All right, cool. So I do want to say to all of our panelists that were here today, thank you all so much. We will continue this work. Like I said, this cohort comes together every other Thursday and we meet. If you ever have any questions, Stacy, would you mind sharing your email just out loud so that people who are watching this, because I don't know if they'll be able to see the chat, so then that way they can hear you say your email address.
Yep, I will type it. It's a long one. So it's SCANGELOSI Cangelosi at alcoholdrugcouncil.org. David, do we have the ability to email folks that signed up?
We sure do.
Because we have some marketing materials. We have a brochure and we have handouts for employers and employees. So
Yep.
David can email those out to folks that were on the call so that you have contact information, you have a list of what do we do, what can we do, and phone numbers, emails, all stuff. So we'll get that out to folks too.
Yeah, just reach out to myself here at the Chamber. Many of you already know how to reach me for a lot of different things that we do at the Chamber anyway. Again, step one is just wanting to find out and be involved, and we can get you connected to all the right people ASAP, no problem. I will definitely send out all the materials that Stacy has that we have for the program. And again, I just want to say thank you to everyone that was here today. Thank you for everyone that will watch this video later. It's a YouTube link, so feel free to share it with other people in your professional networks. Again, the more people that can have eyes on this and increase their knowledge and shift their mindset, the better we off will all be in this community, especially as people are transitioning back to work and businesses are struggling a little bit to find employees to come back to work. This is a solution. It's always been a solution. So let's continue to make it work for people and get people back out there as we get ready for this post-COVID world. All right, so again, to our sponsor, Tompkins Trust Company, thank you so much. It is crazy how dark it has gotten in my office from the beginning of this to the end of this. The weather has definitely shifted. So this is a good time to end this before my office totally blacks out and you can no longer see me in this box. So thank you all so much for being here. We'll be in touch soon. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week and have a good one. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.